And here I thought I was done with this topic, but we're back again. It turns out there was one more scenario I hadn't considered yet in our discussion about how to measure helping speed and helping bonus. This is the third video in a trilogy of explaining how speed works in this game. Just a quick recap. At first, we wanted to compare whether helping bonus was better than berry finding S. Then it turned out that I needed to explain what helping bonus actually does, and it doesn't do what the game says it does. Neither does helping speed M. Because if you watch this video, you would know that when the game says this Pokemon helps out 14% faster, which you would intuitively think the speed of something has gone up, not the time of something has gone down, well, you now know that that's wrong. Because 14% faster works out like this. A Pokemon that's 14% faster, according to this game, actually has 14% less time to produce. But to actually work out the production rate, it's 1 minus 0.14, which is 0.86. Then you invert that and go 1 divided by 0.86. So it's actually a 16% increase in productions, which seems like a very roundabout way of doing things, but that's what it is. But then there was a problem. Paul Wallach in my Discord asked me, well, what happens with Good Camp Ticket? Do you also reduce the time by 20%? So the example he gave here is if a Pokemon has maximum speed, which is 35% at maximum, and then also have a good nature, speed of help up nature, which makes it reduce time by 10%, hence 0.65 times 0.9, which is the example I gave last time, then times 0.8. What the game says is that helpers will work 20% faster. So if we use the definition of what faster means in this game, a reduction in time, it would be intuitive that 20% faster from a Good Camp Ticket also reduces time. Unfortunately, it's the reverse. For Good Camp Ticket, that 20% faster actually talks about the production. So from a mathematical point of view, it's not 20% reduction in time, it actually is 20% increase in production. Well, how did I know that? Well, there wasn't actually a way for me to determine this in the game without collecting data myself. But using the RainNX calculator and also confirming it with RainNX themselves, the production amount is actually increased by 20% and not increased by 1 divided by 0.8. 25%, so not this number. You can do this calculation yourself, and we're going to use an Eevee in this example, and we're going to set it to always full pack. So we're only looking at berry production. And remember this number, 5408. Then go to others in the settings and activate Good Camp Ticket. Then we take this number, 6492, divided by 5408, and lo and behold, we get 20%. So in actual fact, for Good Camp Ticket, the definition is absolutely correct. I would actually think of 20% faster as 20% more productions. So the real culprit is the definition of anything that has helping speed or helping bonus, because they actually reduce the time. Funnily enough, after I made the last video, I did a deep dive into what these descriptions say in other languages, to try and get to the bottom of what actually happened. Did we actually lose a lot of information in the translation, or was the original text in Japanese, because Select Button is a Japanese developer, were they actually wrong all along? So the first one we're going to look at is the subskill helping speed M. Now in Japanese, it turns out that helping speed M says the time shortens by 14%. The Japanese definition is absolutely correct. If we had been given that definition, we would have had much less confusion in the English gameplay. Because if we look at the second point I made today, which is the Good Camp Ticket, it also says it correctly in Japanese, so helping speed is 1.2 times, which is what the English text says, 20% faster. So there's no problem with the Good Camp Ticket. We just can't use the same idea we used with helping speed to calculate also what happens with Good Camp Ticket. And finally, let's look at the original text for what frequency means in Japanese. Now, one commenter pointed out that yes, it says every certain amount of time, which is a frequency, so that actually does make sense, but the problem would then be in Japanese, because in Japanese, the frequency is translated to helping time, and it also says every, so goto here, every certain amount of minutes and seconds following that. I use Google Translate just to give you guys an idea of what it actually says in Japanese, and it does say help time, but I verified it with a native Japanese speaker to confirm that yes, this indeed is help time. Of course, help time and frequency are often used interchangeably because you can work out one with the other. The problem arises from saying, well, if the help time increases or decreases. Because if the help time in Japanese decreases, the Pokemon produces more. But if I said the same thing in English and I told you frequency decreased, yes, if this time decreased, it would be a better production. But if I told you something happened less frequently, it would actually mean that the productions have reduced, which is counterintuitive. So if we consider the frequency as this whole text, every certain amount of time, then that is correct, which makes the Japanese definition, the original definition, well, somewhat misleading, because this was never help time. This was actually frequency. Now, as far as I'm concerned, nobody actually uses frequency when they're talking about this game. To be fair though, help time is a better number to understand because you're just given how many minutes and seconds, whereas if we were given frequency, we'd end up with a lot of decimal places, which is going to be a lot less intuitive to understand. So to be fair, almost everybody, when they refer to this number, they are actually talking about the helping time, the time it takes for the next production to occur. In other words, in mathematical or physics terms, it's a period, not the frequency. No one actually uses that every term except the game, which then puts it back to becoming a frequency. Now, just for fun, I also looked at another language. In Chinese, it actually says the helping interval, which is another term, but at least it also describes the same as what the Japanese does. It's a time, not a frequency. So it seems like English is the main one that has got it inverted. Yet if we count the every, so this word here means every, it is true that this whole thing becomes frequency. Just not something that we use, we usually just quote the helping time. Even the Rainanex calculator, the most reliable calculator, quotes the helping time, but then calls it the base frequency. So you can see how prevalent the problem has become. As long as you understand the context, that's not going to be a problem. So while English flat out got helping speed M wrong, how about in Chinese? In Chinese, it actually says the helping interval is reduced by 14%, which also makes sense as a time reduction. So this is Google translated of that skill. The interval, in other words, a time, is reduced by 14%. And finally, for Good Camp Ticket, the Chinese translation is also consistent with both the Japanese and the English. So for Good Camp Ticket, there's no problems at all. It is a 20% increase in speed. Now, does it really change anything now that we know Good Camp Ticket is a direct increase to productions? Well, not really. It's not like you can get different stats and you can re-roll the Pokemon and you can value it differently. It's not like that anyway. It was a lot more important that everyone understood how helping speed and helping bonus worked, so that you no longer value helping speed as having a 14% increase production, but rather a 16% increase in production. And at maximum speed with both subskills and nature, a 71% production increase, actually outdoing even berry amounts by a single berry finding S subskill. So hopefully we've come full circle to understanding how helping bonus works, after all these 3 videos. And hopefully, this is the end of the trilogy explaining how all these speed stats work. If there's any other scenario I still haven't considered, let me know in the comments section below. And thank you for mathing, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.